Have you ever, grappled with an idea, like something that makes total sense up here in your head, but you just don't feel it deep down? You get it intellectually, sure, but it hasn't really changed how you experience things day to day.
That gap, right,
Yeah.
between knowing and feeling. That's exactly what we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive into some pretty profound ancient wisdom, specifically chapter 7, verses 8 to 12 of the Bhagavad Gita, using Gita for joyful living as our guide. Our mission really is to unpack how understanding the divine, like Krishna describes here, could actually lead to, well, joyful living. And crucially, how do we bridge that gap, that tricky space between just knowing something and actually living it?
Yeah, and what's really striking about this particular source, this part of the Gita, is how practical it aims to be. It's not just throwing abstract ideas out there. It gives, quite a detailed description of God, even offers steps for perception. And it uses these really powerful analogies to try and make these huge concepts a bit more tangible. Okay, let's dive in then. This wisdom really suggests our world, our everyday reality, is fundamentally different from how we usually see it. So the source kicks off with Lord Krishna describing the divine. And it's not just as the intelligent force behind creation, the grand architect, but also as the material cause, meaning the universe is actually made out of God's own essence.
Exactly. That's teaching 85 of the source material.
Yeah.
Puts it bluntly, there is nothing but God.
Mm.
And the implication there is massive. I mean, if we truly absorb that, we should be experiencing God constantly.
Yeah.
Seeing God, hearing God, interacting with God in everything, all the time.
Logically, yeah, that follows. It's a huge statement. But
Yeah.
here's where it gets tricky, right? If it's so clear, intellectually speaking, why don't we feel that way? Why isn't that our normal experience?
Ah, that's the core contradiction, isn't it? We can know intellectually, okay, everything is God. But emotionally, our perception is still dominated by seeing the world as separate things. Sources of pleasure, sources of pain, distinct from this divine reality. And the source points the finger directly at our prolonged exposure to the world with our wrong views. Basically, looking at the world the wrong way for so long builds up these really strong likes and dislikes, attachments. And it says this attachment actually dilutes our intelligence, sort of fogs up our ability to see clearly.
Okay, so it's like the source uses this analogy I found helpful. Imagine a childhood friend, right? She changes her name. You know her new name, you were told, it's registered in your brain. But habit is so strong, you keep slipping up and calling her by her old name. It feels like that's what's happening here. The intellectual knowledge God is everywhere doesn't just automatically overwrite these ingrained habits of perception.
That's a perfect way to put it. That knowledge often stays as just, well, a piece of information. It's something we might agree with, maybe even find comforting in theory, but it hasn't fundamentally shifted how we perceive or interact with life. It hasn't transformed us.
So if ingrained habit is the big blocker, what's the way through? Krishna apparently anticipates this. He suggests a new practice, doesn't he, to kind of force that harmony between understanding and experience. It reminds me of like when a teacher makes you write out the correct spelling of a word 50 times, an imposition, they called it, to overwrite the mistake.
Exactly. It's very much like that. Or using your friend analogy again. It's like your friend actively, maybe even insistently, making you use her new name over and over in different situations until consciously using the new name becomes the new unconscious habit. That repetition, that conscious practice is absolutely the key.
And Krishna's method for this imposition is pretty direct. He basically tells us to actively see God everywhere. He says things like, I am the water, I am the sun, and so on. He lists specific examples, right? Yeah, in verse 7.8. I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable om, the sound in ether, and ability in man. And 7.9, I am the original fragrance of the earth, and I am the heat and fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the penances of all ascetics. And 7.10, I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all powerful men. Finally, 7.1, of the strong, I am the strength, which is free from desire and attachment. In all beings, I am the desire, which is not opposed to dharma, which is right action.
And why this specific list? Why this practice? It raises a good question. The purpose seems to be to drum into us this realization. We are always in God's presence. Always. Whether you're in a temple, a designated holy place, or just, walking down the street or washing dishes. It directly tackles that common feeling that God is somehow more present in special places than in, say, your office.
Right. And to make this idea of underlying reality even clearer, the source brings in another analogy, the gold one. It says, okay, think about a gold bangle, a gold necklace, a gold ring. Each one is a distinct object, right? A bangle isn't a necklace.
Correct. But here's the twist. God is presented as the exception to how we normally categorize things. When you talk about the gold itself, the actual material these things are made of, you can't point to some other object that is just gold, separate from the jewelry.
Oh.
So the practice it suggests is like mentally repeating. The bangle is gold, the necklace is gold, the ring is gold.
Yeah.
Where, poof. You do that until it sinks in that there's no gold floating around independent of these forms, and yet every single one of them is essentially gold. And that's what Krishna is doing. He keeps pointing to everything, water, sun, fragrance, ability, and saying, I am this, I am that, until we start to realize deep down, okay, there actually isn't anything but this underlying divine reality.
So the goal here, with this constant repetition and reflection, is that eventually our feelings, our gut reactions to the world, start to line up with our intellectual knowledge that the world is God, that they finally synchronize.
Precisely. The practice is about shifting perception. But then there's another important layer. Lord Krishna adds a crucial reminder, according to the source. While God is in everything, God isn't dependent on any of those things. It's a subtle point, but really vital.
Okay, let's go back to the gold. So gold is in the bangle, the necklace, the ring. But the gold itself doesn't need the bangle or the necklace to exist. If you melt them all down, the gold is still there. It continues.
Exactly that. And the source explains this by describing the world of forms and names, of aura, energy, matter, as an illusion. This phenomenal world is called God's lower nature. But God's higher nature, called Brahman, the ultimate reality, is superior to it and completely independent. So what does illusion mean here? It means it's fundamentally just form and name. It's not unreal in the sense that it doesn't exist, but its reality is dependent. It depends entirely on Brahman, on God, for its existence, like the wave depends on the ocean.
Ah, okay. So the bangle, the necklace, the ring, they are real as forms, as names we give things. But their fundamental essence, their underlying reality, is the gold. They are expressions of the gold.
And that brings us right back around to the ultimate benefit, teaching 86. The benefit of knowing God is joyful living. But, and this is the key takeaway, this joy doesn't just automatically happen from intellectually understanding the nature of God. You can know all the concepts.
Right. It's not just about passing the test, is it? The core message here for you listening seems to be this. It's only when your emotions, your feelings, your actual perception starts to register the presence of God everywhere. In the taste of water, the heat of fire, the ability within you. Only then can you truly arrive at that destination, that state of joyful living. It's about feeling that interconnectedness, not just thinking about it, experiencing the joy that's inherent in recognizing that unity. So quite a journey there. We've walked through Krishna's teachings from this section, looking at how to close that gap between intellectually getting that God is everywhere and actually perceiving it, feeling it moment to moment, which leads to this joyful living.
So maybe as you go about your day after listening, just a thought to consider. Could you pick one seemingly ordinary thing? Maybe the water you drink, the sunlight, maybe even just the feeling of your own energy. And consciously pause. Ask yourself, what underlying reality does this represent? Could I perceive this differently?
Yeah, how might just that simple shift, that conscious imposition of seeing the divine in the mundane, how might that start to subtly transform your feelings? Could it open up a little more space for joy in your life? Something to reflect on.
Yeah.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep.